I'm Peter Marks, theater critic of the Washington Post. And normally, the next line goes to my podcast partner, Elisabeth Vincentelli, who writes for the New York Times. But Elisabeth is on assignment this week, so I am flying solo on Marks and Vincentelli, the theater podcast that for this installment is Marks and my guest, a potently gifted actor who's now appearing on Broadway opposite Jessica Chastain in director Jamie Lloyd's radically reimagined revival of Ibsen's A Doll's House. That would be Arian Moayed. He's been nominated for a Tony for his performance as Torvald Helmer, husband to Chastain's Nora. Torvald is traditionally one of the heavies of the play. He's an overbearingly controlling husband, as Ibsen brought him to life in the Norway of 1879. Moayed has a multifaceted career. He was previously on Broadway as a more sympathetic husband in The Humans, but of course he's probably best known for his role on a truly remarkable HBO series that's unfolding now, Succession, in the midst of its final season. He's the duplicitous and scheming Stewie on Succession, as anyone who watches the show knows. He was previously Tony nominated for Bengal Tiger at the Baghdad Zoo with the late Robin Williams. He's a theater educator in Manhattan on the faculty of the Professional Performing Arts School, and he is also co-founder of Waterwell, a nonprofit arts and education company. Anyway, that's a long intro to saying welcome to Arian Moayed, who's joining us today. Thanks for being here, Arian.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you for having me.
You know, I just want to say, Arian, at the top that I feel very, very sorry for you. I mean, you know, a Tony nomination in a great play with a great director, great amazing ensemble. Also being in the most talked about series on HBO in maybe the history of mankind. So you're having this awful moment. So thank you for rising to the occasion and being able to speak about all this.
Well, it's so hard. I mean, it's so hard. The shows are so popular, and so I don't know. It's too much for me. It's too much for me.
No, but are you enjoying them? Can you savor the moment? I'm
trying to. Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. Like, you know me so well, Peter, that I'm working on so many projects. But right now I am trying to take a moment and just be like, oh, you're in a very good spot. Things are going really well.
Right.
You know what I mean? I'm sure you're going to worry about a million other things, but I am trying to enjoy it, especially with the succession of it all, just because it's going to be over soon. And the rush of it all is just, and the rush and the anticipation of every episode coming out on Sunday nights, all that is really just, I'm going to miss all that. I'm also just going to miss the crew and the cast and just hanging out, you know?
Yeah, I can. Right. There's that whole social aspect that we don't really, ever get to see per se, of how you all relate to each other. But also, an actor's life, and I know you have a life outside of the stage and the screen, that fulfills you. But, so many variables can sidetrack it. The idea that you can be in these celebrated, simultaneously evolving works, must be, I don't know if it's like that pinch yourself thing, or you think, well, this is what I got into this business for, to have these moments, or are they in a way almost, just icing on the cake, that it's not really, it's just, it is truly just having the challenge of doing these kinds of projects.
I mean, it's a crazy moment, you know what I mean? Because both of these things are such, I don't know, they're just such talked about pieces of art right now.
Right.
And a lot, I get this question in a different way, a lot of like, how do you like do so much, or how is it like doing so much? And I think a part of it is because I put all of my emphasis in the writing. You know what I mean? I genuinely believe that the writing is the key to everything. And it's maybe because I am a writer myself, or because I think I don't think of myself when I'm doing a piece of art as an actor or a director. I think of it like someone trying to create something with a group of people that's really kind of special and like moves the needle of social change in some sort of way. And so, in a way, I think one of the keys to Succession and A Doll's House is Jesse Armstrong and Amy Herzog simultaneously, or whatever, respectively, I guess.
The two, the creator of Succession and the adapter of A Doll's House.
Yeah, I think those are the real kind of emphasis on, and I think that's how I pick my work really when I'm trying to like audition for something or get an offer for something. I just want to make sure that the writing is the most important aspect of it. I've had the privilege of working with Amy in a play. You're going to love this, Peter. This is talk about like inside theater. In 2008 or 9, the Ars Nova had this like play group or whatever, where they did a bunch of plays from a bunch of different playwrights, like 10-minute plays. And I was an actor in those. And the year that I was in, the writers were Amy Herzog,
wow,
Annie Baker,
oh my God,
Brandon Jacobs Jenkins.
Wow.
I'm forgetting someone, Matthew Lopez.
Oh my God.
And
it was the future in that room.
There was some future in that room. And I was in one of Amy's plays, and it was a really silly little 10-minute play about two people that just came from a yoga class on the subway train. But I took it so seriously. Like I think that's a big portion of what I think I see in Amy's work or in Jesse's work, is that I understand the form, or I understand where a joke may land, or I understand that, like, you know, in Doll's House, that Torvald is like mansplaining at this point.
Right.
I understand what's going on there. But as an actor, I'm trying to actually think more of a writer and try to be like, oh, but at this moment, this is what needs to happen for Nora's journey. To me, one of the most satisfying things about A Doll's House is the eruption of applause when Nora finally leaves the house in our very kind of amazing theatrical way.
Oh yeah, wonderful.
To me, I feel all of the ensemble together comes together and says, like, we did it.
Right.
We told the story of Nora, and that to me is the most satisfying portion of it. And with Succession, I feel the same way. When I read the pilot, like, I auditioned for the pilot. I don't know if you knew that or not, but I tested for the pilot and I didn't get the pilot. And then, and I was doing The Humans at the time, and a year goes by and I'm still doing The Humans. And they asked me to audition for another part of Stewie. And I remember reading that episode. I remember reading the pilot very vividly. And I just remember being like, wow, this writing is, I can't put my finger on what this is, but I'm sure it's a drama and I'm sure it's a comedy at the same time. I don't know how, but I was, and that really was those are the winners of the piece. You know what I mean? And I'm lucky enough to get into a room to be in those. But I really find that the writing is the most important aspect of this all. That makes
complete sense. Certainly, you know, if we talk about separately A Doll's House, this production, the words Jamie Lloyd has in the way he constructs this piece, and for those who don't know, it's a basically setless. If that really actually everything has a set, but there's very little furnishing in this production. It really is chairs and a turntable. And the actors, and the amplification has been refined to the point where you hear every whisper, every gasp of the actors, and also, of course, the words are all in this production. If you didn't have actors of the caliber that we're watching who understand all that and understand each other and the relationships as they evolve, it wouldn't be this riveting evening. It is, but it's that collaboration. It's what you guys do with Amy's really crisp adaptation that really makes it work.
And Amy is really, I think the language of A Doll's House is blunt. I think it's blunt. I think it's direct.
Right.
I think it's not flowery.
Right.
I think it is emotional punches every single time. And there's so many lines I could talk about this, but there's these lines that Christine says, plays by the amazing Jess Mill. Jess Mill has these lines where it's like, you must feel so great that you don't have anyone else. No, I feel utterly empty, like no one to live for.
Right.
And those are, in a lesser playwright's hands, those are like penultimate scenes where the character reveals its most intimate aspect. That's like in the first 8 minutes.
Right.
Blunt, direct, brutal, hard, loving, messy language. And Jamie lets the language be the primary piece in so many ways. One, by not having any furnishings, like you said. But the other about this kind of like unbelievable technology that him and Ben and the sound, Ben and Max, the sound guys, have made, which is we have these microphones that are very visible, that are purposefully showing the audience that we're being mic'd. That is a huge portion of it. But on day 2 of rehearsal, we were with the mics and we were with the turntables.
Wow.
And at first,
wait, you were at the turntable on the second day of rehearsal?
Second day of rehearsal.
You were spinning?
We were spinning day 2.
Wow.
Day 2. I mean, with no plan. I mean, it's not like Jamie came in with like his book out and he's like, on this page, you're going to move here. It was pretty, the whole process. I want to give Jamie his flowers right now. He did an unbelievable job of casting some unbelievable actors, but they're also pretty egoless. I would say that, humbly and truthfully. 1. 2 is we had 5 weeks of rehearsal. We had 5-hour rehearsal days, only 5-hour rehearsal days, in which Peter, he rarely used all 5 hours. Rarely.
Oh my God.
We showed up day 1 off book. By day 2, we did like 30, 40 pages of the play. And I'm going back to the microphones now. By having what he calls audio intimacy, it's not about amplification. Everyone in the room can amplify to the back of the room. That's not the issue here. The issue is by having it so intimate, you can get to different truths in the theater that feel like you're actually watching a private conversation instead of a personal conversation publicly.
Right. Oh, that's well said.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's really interesting. But also, Arian, I mean, what I found interesting was, he's also sort of stripped down or the physical interactions of the play. Gesturally, you're all very much isolated in space, even to the point where there are exchanges that are supposed to happen of certain objects that don't happen. We have to imagine it as the audience. We have to actually, we have to project onto you doing these things. Is that challenging? Are there impulses that you have as Torvald to want to, obviously to smother, maybe even physically, Nora, Jessica's Nora, that you can't accomplish?
100%. Again, part of the, going back to the process to answer your question, is that for Act 3, which is the big like Nora, Torvald, like kind of like act, it until maybe the second to last day of tech, I was actually on my feet, and I found, and on that Friday of tech, he's kind of like, "What happens if you sit for this entire thing?" And I sat, and to be honest, it's very frustrating at first. Especially about what you're saying. If Nora is going to be in that chair the whole time, right, and there's moments that I want to smother her or like coddle her, and do it realistically, like what it might look like. Again, going back to those private things, that chair, I kept on saying, this chair is in the way here.
Right.
It's just like in my way. Like, can I pick her up? Can I sit down? Can she sit on my lap? But the reality is, the more, and now I'm going to go back to me running around in Act 3. When I'm running around in Act 3, before we, sat me in the chair, what was happening is my energy was very similar. You were probably, I wasn't like, it wasn't like a different performance. I was doing the same things, but my energy was now hitting the back wall. It was hitting the ceiling. It was, and all of a sudden being diffuse. And the moment that I got back on that chair, it actually made it very violent and slightly dangerous because now all of a sudden I feel like the chair is now glued to me, but I'm trying to rip myself off of that chair.
Interesting.
But I'm still doing all of the stuff that I did when I was walking and talking and jumping up and down, but I'm just now contained about it. And I will tell you, part of the reason why I think I did that, this goes really to the truth of your question here, is that there's a moment in the play where I don't really want to talk about, but there is a moment in the play where I have to deal with a couple of props in which it's just me and the props.
Right.
And, but there are no props.
Right.
And when I was walking around and doing it, I could hide myself by not showing and unveiling to the audience that I am doing this prop work without the prop, because it feels awkward. It feels awkward, and it feels, and then by putting myself in the chair on that one time, for the first time ever, I was like, oh, fuck. It's getting to the point where I have to deal with this prop a couple times, and now I can't hide, because in the back I would like look at the back or look at the side, but now I'm like front and center. So I just like did it front and center. And then afterwards I went up to Jamie and I said, I just want to let you know, everything was really cool about me being in a chair, but that section where I have to deal with those props, I don't think that's going to work. He's like, no, it's going to work. I said, I don't really feel comfortable. He's like, no, trust me, it's going to work. But so there are moments where it just feels, that I wish we could, look at this or that. But to be honest with you, the writing is so clear and so important. By doing all that messy work, it kind of takes it away.
But that's so interesting. What you're describing, Arian, is something very about some kind of trust that has to happen between an actor and a director. You have to believe, because if you're, we understand that actors act out of some, sense of authenticity themselves, some sense of impulse of what their character, how they're feeling in that moment, what they imagine is the intention, what they're trying to get done. And here you have and this is not criticism, it's an interesting intellectual exploration. When the director is denying you some of those tools and saying, no, do it, believe me, your belief has to, you have to believe, you have no choice but to believe. No, I mean, it's at 100%. Some point you have to just relinquish. Torvald being a character totally about control, Torvald has to relinquish, Arian has to release control.
You're asking the 100% the right question. And the answer to that is yes, you have to trust your director. I'll tell you a perfect example. At the end of the Act 3 has basically in two parts. It's like the Torvald section and the Nora section, essentially, And in the Nora section, how it's staged is I am legitimately maybe about 1.5 to 2 inches from Jessica Chastain's face. I am literally on a profile like this, and her face is that close to me, about 2 inches away. And he goes, I just want you to try it once where you're just looking at her at the side like this. And, at first you're like, well, why am I doing that? And he's like, well, I think it's like, it will have like an emotional impact. Let's just try it once. So I'm immediately kind of like, okay, why am I doing this? But Jamie's really smart. Let's try this. And the first time I did it, my neck hurt like crazy. And then Jamie's like, he's like, well, you can twist your thing. I said, no, if we're doing this thing that you want, we have to do this. We have to see what it looks like with me completing the mission before we can say this sucks. Do you know what I mean? I feel like theater people have to like see the 100% version of it before we say, oh, you know what? This is not going to work. And so the second time, even though my neck was just in pain, I did it and I didn't really, but I just made sure that I did the task. And somehow or another, by me being so close to her, and because Jessica Chastain is a phenom,
right,
the two of us opened up emotionally in a way that hadn't happened before.
Interesting.
Because now, when she looks at me and says, inches from my face, I'm leaving you, Torvald.
Right.
And there's not an ounce of falseness in her eyes or in her demeanor. And she's literally, Jessica's having a metaphysical experience while saying this to me. And I'm this close to her. I cannot hide. My reaction is all of a sudden has to be ready to go with whatever that might be at that moment.
Wow.
And so Jamie is bringing the best out of us by putting us in these moments. And then all of a sudden we get into the room and people are like, I even thought this myself. He's like, well, he must have been doing it for the shadows, because all those shadows, the shadow play.
Right.
But when we were in the rehearsal room, there was no audience, there was no laughs,
right.
there was no shadows, there was nothing.
Right.
And so when we get into the room, and also the shadow play, it wasn't like some grand vision that he was going to like do shadows. I think he teched that again, all of it, on the second to last day of tech on Friday.
Amazing.
He just was like, we're just going to do all shadow. We're just going to do this one light.
Also what's interesting is you're describing almost a filmic idea sometimes of what's happening. I mean, you don't get to see dailies or anything. I don't even know what you rushes, whatever the hell. You don't get to see those moments you're describing as having this emotional richness that comes out of just the way in which it was staged, the way Jamie talked you through it, and you guys interpreted it yourselves.
Yeah.
You can't see that, and those are very, as you say, very visual, very specific, and very graphically powerful images you're describing.
Yeah, I mean, I wish I could. We can see it a little bit on the sides when the shadows are kind of playing, and sometimes we're in a line and we're all looking at our shadows in the back. Those are some of those magical moments. But overall, I mean, again, I want to just give Jamie so much love. At the end of the day, the most important thing for us to do as performers are the words and our other performers.
Right.
It just doesn't really matter to us after a while.
Right.
I mean, of course it matters. You know what I mean? I really want, what I love about Jamie's taste and Amy's taste and the whole company's taste is that it's so classy and elegant and simple. And it's not like, so I feel that. And so all I can do is just make sure to fill in that void. And I just want to say one more thing about what Jamie's done about this production is that, we've seen, we have 1,000 people show up every night. We have great audiences, and they come from all different spectrums of the world. And I'm Iranian, as you obviously know, and I have a lot of Iranian immigrants, some that came 2 years ago, some that came 50 years ago, everyone under the sun. And because there's no furnishings, so there's no set really, and our costumes are very bland, not bland, but just very sophisticated,
monochromatic,
clean,
basically.
Monochromatic. Is that what we get is you as an audience member, Peter, my mom, anyone's family member, comes and sees the show and watches the show with their DNA. And they are now filling in the blanks of this world with your DNA.
Right.
But it's not the truth. It's your DNA.
I see what you're saying. Yeah, of course.
It is your truth.
Correct.
It is your truth.
Correct.
And that's great.
Whatever that filter is.
So Iranians come and see the show and they don't see the gender stuff. They just see Iran and the fight for woman life freedom in Iran.
Wow.
That's all they're seeing. They don't see anything else. And my mom and my family is convinced that Jamie cast me because he is doing this for the woman life freedom movement of Iran.
Oh my God.
And as many times as I'm like, Mom, I don't think that's the reason. And they're like, no. He's not saying that.
That's wonderful.
And also you have
that's wonderful.
Men. I believe that. Yeah, it's so true. I think that's one. But also you have men that have come seen the show that got a divorce 3 years ago that are now dealing it with their therapist. And they're looking at me and they're like, holy shit, I do that. I do that stuff. And I have women that come and see the show in both sides that say, oh my gosh, I should have left my person, that's my ex-boyfriend or whatever. And we also have other people being like, oh, Torvald is a person that is stuck in a system of male toxicity and that will never, he doesn't even know that it's happening. Part of what I really was very interested in about the Torvald is that not to make him this like like commedia dell'arte, male, chauvinistic character.
Right.
I really was interested in making her a human being, but also making sure that the micro cuts that men do on women or people of power do on the needy are very commonplace. That they feel very regular and not like Jamie and I, when we had our conversation, I met him I was shooting a movie in Budapest, and then I flew out to London to meet with him after I got offered this. And I sat down with him and I talked to him about this. And I said, I'm interested in these microcuts, and he was as well. And we were talking about these like really like minuscule truths. But I said, but part of what makes this really recognizable is that I think a lot of people of power, specifically in this show, men, don't actually know that they're doing these things. And that cluelessness is actually huge.
I think that's right.
And I wanted men to see it and be like, instead of seeing a Torvald that like is a male chauvinist pig, and it's very easy for them to be like, well, that's not me. I don't do that. And then all of a sudden they're detached. Then the needle has not moved. But if they see themselves in that, in the harshness that is Torvald, in the micro things, I think then we can actually move the needle.
Yeah, that's very all right. So that I think that's true. I think there is something almost clinically instructive about the progression of this play and watching those moments when Torvald is completely. We know also that Torvald. We know where the play's going, obviously, if you know the play, but also you can almost mark the moments at which Torvald makes the absolute wrong choices. You can feel it, and as you say, not as a caricature. He's not a monster. He's a human being. I mean, we get all that.
Yeah, I mean, at one point he says that in that last little section, he goes, "You don't understand how this society works."
Right.
And she goes, "You're right. I don't, but it doesn't mean that it's good for me."
Right.
And Torvald cannot envision anything that doesn't have anything to do with the society and the norms and making sure that we look good and go to the thing and make sure that we hit all the markers, very Gilded Age in that way. Do you know what I mean?
Indeed.
And Nora is saying, society, not only are you fucked, society is fucked.
Right.
This whole thing is a sham, and it's true. And
and you also understand in this version so clearly how she's so hamstrung by her financial isolation, how she has no recourse, she has no resources of her own. The culture is stacked against her for even trying to wrest herself out of Torvald's nest. Yeah.
And also playing the game. What Jessica and I always talk, when Jessica brings it up all the time, is she is also continuing the norms of society. She is also playing into all the things that society wants us to do as a couple or whatever. So it's amazing. Nora is also kind of involved in it until she realizes, like, wait, why am I doing this? Do you know what I mean? Like, why? This is not a way to live.
Right. Yeah. No, I think you guys did a really good job of revealing to us why this play, needs to be seen now. I mean, and that's always sort of the question that hangs out there. What the hell can it say to us in 2023? I also think, and I wonder about this, Arian, I know you're interested in plays that foster social change. Waterwell is sort of devoted to that whole, Waterwell, your company that you co-founded, is devoted to this question in the work. How do you think does this play in some way feel like a continuum of that kind of work?
100%. I mean, we are dealing, let's just talk about America. We are, in the last 2 years, women's rights have essentially been lessened. Men have more rights than women, period, the end. We are living in a world where women are forced to have pregnancies that they might not want to.
Right.
We are living in a world where still there's a pay-wage discrepancy. There's so many levels of just blatant, obvious, unfair, unjust actions against women, and of all races and all from all countries. And today, it feels to me that we as a society have to really come to terms with the fact that we are all a part of making this misogyny happen. And whether we know it or not, we are all complicit in that because we all play the games that society has given us, and we don't fight for the rights for women as much as we need to. And so I believe in protest. I believe in real direct active change to go and try to move the needle down in DC. But I also believe art is a real, I keep on saying moving the needle, but I think it can actually move the needle. Because we can see ourselves in it, we can empathize with people that are not us, and we can be like, oh man, that is not right. And I think part of the reason why I'm even here is because of that. You know, I was saying to you, I was when I was offered it, I was actually flying out to from Budapest to Berlin to go to this protest for Iran. It was about 125,000 people showed up in Berlin. It's the biggest protest that's happened outside of Iran ever. And I went and I was so excited, and I'm reading the play on my phone as I'm flying to Berlin. And as I'm reading this, I realized that this play is only about Iran. That's all I'm really actually seeing in this. And to me, even if just one Iranian comes and sees the show and says, oh man, I want the Iranian woman to be the Nora that walks out and says, I'm out of this. That to me is huge for that impact. And I think Amy is really going after it. I think she's going after it in a very astute, micro, talking to the macro very easily way. And to me, I can only do projects like that because those are the ones that really feed my soul and really, you know, a lot of actors come up to me, Peter, and they're like, I don't know if I can be the guy that's getting the brunt end of the stage, being on stage, you know, as Nora leaves at the end, you know, some nights it's so, they're like applauding my, you know, demise.
Right. Of course. Of course. Well, that means you're doing your job, man.
But to me, that is a satisfactory victory. I feel that fantastic.
Oh my God. Yeah. It would be, you know, it would be marvelous if somehow this piece could be seen in Iran. Obviously it seems, you know, a ridiculous pipe dream, but I don't even in a bootleg, you know, production that gets, you know, seen on video.
Totally. I mean, I would love for that. You know, I was Googling it because I'm such a nerd and a researcher. And so, but yeah, there was a production of, in Iran, they called it Nora. The play is called Nora. And they did like a real kind of like avant-garde, what would seem to me like, what might be like a, you know, an Evo version of Nora with like cameras. And very simple. But they're obviously purposefully doing that play there for a very specific reason.
Got it. Of course. I mean, where on earth would it feel more relevant?
More relevant. Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. I get
that.
You know, I was thinking as you were talking too about the Waterwells play 7 Minutes, which is all women workers, you know, debating, you know, how to respond to management's decision to cut their like one break. Right. I mean, we get 90 minutes of this wonderful dialogue, and it really is another variation on this theme, you know, in the sense of, you know, women claiming their space in, you know, in the power structure. How do they collectively claim it? Maybe not.
Not individual. Well, first, it's basically, 7 Minutes is this Stefano Messina play that Lee Sunday Evans kind of adapted into English for the first time. And we did it. And basically, there's 11 women arguing to take their lunchtime from 15 minutes, their break time from 15 minutes to 7 minutes to save their jobs. But maybe just save their jobs for a year, not forever. And the reason why Waterwell does that play is because we were watching in the news that unions, and as we're right now in a strike, the WGA is in a strike, we were watching the Amazon union workers be like, why are we getting treated like shit in the middle of COVID? Why is this happening? We are responding. Waterwell is responding to that kind of energy where in what seemed to me in the 40s and 50s and 60s, being in a union and being in labor was like a beautiful pride, a piece of pride, a democratic kind of like, we are together in this. It's coming off the heels of the war. It's coming off the heels of, there's so many amazing, almost Americana things about it. Today, they're always labor unions are kind of like think of like annoying, or they always want more, and they're trying to like squeeze something out. But they're squeezing something out where people are getting gajillion-dollar profits here. And so to us, the response for theater and art is to respond to that with a piece of art. So with the union, with what was happening with labor unions and Amazon, what we were doing, 7 minutes. What's happening in the world with women in Iran or in anywhere in the world, in the United States, in Missouri, in Oklahoma City, like, what we're doing is we're responding with it with a doll's house, and the hope is that more and more people can get to do these pieces there, get to do them in Oklahoma City, get to do it in Missouri, get to do it, in those places.
It's and I'm thinking the way all your work interconnects, because Stewie on Succession is the opposite. He's the problem. I mean, as much as we're in this black comedy. There is no redeeming human being
at all
in sight. But Stewie is is emblematic of the abusers, of the people who have taken the system away from those people. It's fascinating to think of you occupying that headspace.
People always ask me, they're like, "How do you know so much about business?" I said, "Well, I have a nonprofit." They're like, "Well, it's not the same thing." I was like, "Well, that's true. But I just basically take all of the nonprofit stuff and I just pretend that it's a for-profit."
That's funny.
I mean, when you want to tell the evils of capitalism and materialistic people and the 0.001% that rule society, that are all basically white men, straight white men, you know what? The best way to kind of like tackle that, to talk about that, like how evil all that wealth inequality is to give them the truth, just to give it to them exactly how it looks. And that's ugly and mean. And, I'll never forget, I always think about this all the time, and it's a very subtle line, and no one really talks about it. It's in season 1, in which they're talking about how to save the company at one point, Waystar. And I think Kieran says, well, we can do layoffs, 25,000 people. And they're like, yeah, okay, good. What else?
Right.
And in my mind is like, you just fired 25,000 people, which means you're essentially almost 100,000 people might be affected by this. And to me, that's like, and the only way we can get to tell those truths is to not comment on it. It's just to give it to it how it is.
That's fascinating. When I have to think about you on set, sort of just like on stage, holding these two ideas in your head at the same time. You're far afield of these kind of ideals in these certain characters, and yet you've got and your mission is to underline these evils or these bad things that need to go away by playing into them.
I think so. Someone asked me, a young student asked me on the autograph line for Doll's House. They said, how do you play such an evil character and like go to bed at night and like, how do you, which was, I take this as a compliment, even though like, I don't consider any of the character that I do is evil, but I know what she means. And I said, there's a moment in the play where Torvald is like obviously mansplaining. And she's like, it's about knitting. I say, do you knit? Of course, avidly. Have you ever thought about embroidery as an alternative? No. Well, it's so beautiful. It's so majestic. Right. He's just talking about bullshit that he doesn't know nothing about. I'm sure he's never even touched any of it. Of the pieces. The reason, but if I look, and I know what Amy's doing with this. I obviously get that this is a piece of mansplaining. But if I play mansplaining, basically I'm doing an SNL character.
Exactly right. I agree.
And if I'm doing, and then all of a sudden, again, it goes back to, then people won't recognize themselves in that. And then they're off the hook.
Well said. I get it. Totally. Right. No.
So I can't worry about mansplaining.
Right.
Then I'm like, what is mansplaining?
Right.
Like, what is it? All I can do is, I think what mansplaining is that they think that they're trying to be helpful.
Right. Right.
So now my action is not to mansplain. My action is to help.
Right. Men often think their job is to solve problems for women. And it's the opposite of what women, anyone actually wants.
Yeah.
Don't solve, talk to me as a human being to human being. Don't think you know how I need to respond to be better.
99.9999% of the time, they just want you to fucking listen.
Right.
Just shut up.
Exactly.
Just listen.
And he doesn't listen.
No, my God, no. But, not only that, I had a very tough task. I also want to fight for their relationship. I want to fight for their love or whatnot. And so in this last section, basically every one of Amy's lines that Torvald has as Nora's leaving him is, but what about me? But what about me? It's very narcissistic. He's very like, will you think of me? What about me? Everything is about me. And that's tricky because, again, I know that the narcissism is like deep embedded in that. So I'm also trying to navigate, though, that the narcissism is there, but he's doing it not because he's trying to because narcissism is the only way that he can function. It's because he doesn't know anything about this. He thinks it's love.
Right. And that has not changed since 1879.
Correct.
These, the incredible thing.
Correct.
It's extraordinary. Last question, Arian. You teach. You have this the professional performing arts school that you're part of. Yeah. Do the students come?
Oh, they just came last Wednesday.
And
we got an amazing organization called City of Strangers to come out to help Waterwell get all the juniors and seniors of our program, the seniors is which I teach, to come and see A Doll's House on a Wednesday matinee, and we had a talk back afterwards.
And
it was magical. They were in that. I think it's I wonder how they feel about it all because I am their teacher,
right?
But I definitely don't go into the room as like, an actor, and I'm definitely going as a teacher. Right. So I think that the questions that they asked at the end of it were some acting questions, but were more about what does it mean that she's in the chair the whole time? What does it mean that the lights are coming down?
Great questions.
Great. We were really talking about the investigating of that. And then the actors get a chance to talk about their characters, not just from like a technical acting perspective, but from a spiritual perspective. And I think that is a real kind of great thing that they take from. It's funny. You would think I've been teaching high school for 17 years. I love teaching high school. I kind of only love teaching high school more than college, way more than college. And I sometimes go and, even last Monday I went to the class and I don't think of myself as an actor anymore. I really don't. And so all of a sudden I'm back in the class and we had this amazing it was the day that unbelievable, ridiculous, crazy racist story happened where that black young man was shot for knocking on the door.
Oh, for God's sakes. Ugh.
And I had a class that day and I was teaching my artist assistant, section of the class. And I was like, what am I going to do today? And Peter, I've had dozens of conversations with my students about a young black man or woman getting killed and talking about it in the class over the last 17 years. And I wanted to do something that day and I was really angry and it was near Ferguson and I'm friends with DeRay McKesson, who was a part of that Ferguson community organizing aspect of it. And I found the transcripts, you're going to love this, the transcripts of the trial of Darren Wilson, the cop that shot him. And I printed out about 50 pages of it, walked into class that day, and I said, today I want to tell you how we respond. And I talked about what happened then, about what happened. We all talked about how that felt. And then I handed out these pages to a bunch of groups of like 2 or 3 and I was like, now you have to try to find some like real stories about the cop that shot Michael Brown. And then we had to dive in, and we went in and talked about it, and da-da-da. And I hope that the students think of me more in that way, and then as an actor. Even as an actor, I hope they think of me more as someone that is trying to use art to kind of facilitate real substantive change. And it's crazy because all of a sudden, obviously, we have nothing to say about the man that we shouldn't be talking about, the man that shot Michael Brown. But if they can all of a sudden find a story that talks about the truths of who Darren Wilson is, the man that shot Michael Brown, maybe that is the needle. That is the needle to move the thing forward.
Arian, you've just laid out a project for Waterwell. That story, that situation of, has got that affected me emotionally, and I thought dramatically. Yeah. I thought that's an amazing platform in which to explore that question with young people. Anyway, I'm just saying.
Peter, from your mouth. Now all of a sudden I have 75 projects.
That's just they have 76 now.
This is number 76.
Arian, if anyone can do it,
should do it.
You can. Right. Okay. Fine. I need a break from reviewing. Anyway, this is great. No, listen, it is so much fun talking to you. I could do this for 3 hours and not exhaust the subjects. Same. I want to come back now and I want to see more Waterwell. I want to come see your class. I want to see you in action in a classroom. I'll let you go. Have a great continuation of the run on Broadway, and I'm rooting for you.
Thank you
at awards time. So thanks again. Well, that was really wonderful, and I wish Elisabeth had been with me to share. I know she wanted to be. She was looking forward to talking to Arian because, as you can see, he's just endlessly fascinating. And she'll be back on the next installment of Marks Vincentelli when we're going to talk about the season that just ended on Broadway and the Tony nominations that happened. I've got many, many thoughts about all this, and Elisabeth has, if not as many, probably more than I did about the season. So we'll talk about those things next time. In the meantime, thank you once again for listening to our podcast. We'll be back with that next episode soon. My thanks to Erica Huang, our producer extraordinaire. Please click on marksvincentelli.substack.com and subscribe if you don't already. We deeply appreciate your following us and love your feedback, which you can do in multiple ways. Probably the most widely known would be on Twitter, where we also post updates on upcoming podcasts. Elisabeth's handle is @evincentelli, and I go by Peter Marks Drama. So that's it for this time. And until next time, thank you for listening. And go to the theater, like I do.